Good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Maribal. Thank you for joining us on our DesignShop Talk today. We try to do these on a weekly basis to see what questions you might have, to kind of give you us an interactive time to ask questions and, see how we can help you out. I'm going to start off with the questions that were asked ahead of time. There's not a whole lot, so if you have questions, please type them in on the comments. We're live on both Facebook and YouTube. If you see me looking off to the side, I have a separate monitor with both platforms up that I can kind of monitor to keep track of questions since I'm here by myself. So I'll go ahead and jump into questions and we will go from there. All right. So first question was, how do we arc text? All right. So I also saw a question related to this. Good morning, Gabby. On one of the groups on Facebook asking, okay, not only how do you arc text, but how do you change the arc to be a lower arc or an upper arc? So let's do that. Arc text. All right, so we're going to start off. I've got some basic text here. And Lorena, yippee, you're in above zero. That's a good thing. Let's see, it is 70. It's supposed to be 70 today, so it's beautiful here. All right, so to arc text, I'm going to go line type. Good afternoon on YouTube. MK Buddy, welcome. Thanks for joining. So select your text. How I got to this box, first off, you can either right click and go to properties, or you can double click on it, or over here in my project view, I can find that lettering element. I can do the same thing. I can right click, go to properties, or I can double click. It all takes you to the exact same place. All right, so once we're here, what do we do to make this an arc? Well, right here where you see line type, we're going to change that from straight to arc and hit apply. Okay, so now we have some arched text. And let's say I want text above and below. And I just did something on the keyboard. So what did I do? I'm going to copy this. So Control C, Control V. You'll see I now have two lettering elements. I want to flip it upside down. So I'm going to either rotate it twice, and then I'm going to move it down. Okay, so I've got lower text now, but that's not cute. I don't want it reading upside down. I want it reading normal. So how do we change that? If you go into the properties, again, by double clicking on that element, right here you'll see that my angle, that's 180. That's what gets it to go below. And then if I want it to read the opposite way rather than reading clockwise, I'm going to make it go counterclockwise. Okay, so I've got an arc. Now I can do that same thing here. Rather than flipping it upside down like I did, I can always just say make it counterclockwise and 180 and hit apply. And now I've got an arc going the opposite direction. Okay, so if I make that back to 0 and clockwise. All right, so that is how you arch text. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. All right, what other questions do we have? After you select a whole image, how do you get to a menu to change the settings for the top threads only? Okay, that's why I opened up my one-day design here. So let's go back there. All right, so I've got this whole design. All right, so if I select everything and I go into properties, notice it's only giving me the common things that everything has. So I was just reading a question typed in on YouTube. So let me answer this and then I'll go over to that one. Sorry about that for the space out. So when I select everything, it only gives me the common things. So if I want to change just what's the top stitching, so that's a little bit interesting because I have different types of elements. So I can come over here to where it says all elements and you'll see I've got a drop down. So what is it I want to modify? Well, if I want to modify just the settings on the lettering, I can say lettering. So anything I change will apply just to the lettering. If I want to change my satin stitches, okay, I can change this to satin. So anything that's a satin stitch, it will update, which are going to be all my leaves, the cheeks, things like that. If I want to update just the fill, so the fill are going to be my pears and the bird, I can do that. So I can come in here and adjust whatever properties, and it's going to apply that to whatever it is I have selected here. So the fill stitches, the satin stitches. If I want to mess with the plain old walk stitches, which are going to be my travel stitches, or the bean stitches, which are going to be what you see on top. Okay, so there's no selection for saying just pick what's on top. You've got to know a little bit about your design, but you can see it's pretty straightforward to adjust it, to select what you want rather than having to go through and select each element individually. I mean, that's the other way you can do it. Hold my control key down and I can come through here and start, selecting on my column ones. All right, that's a lot of work. What's another way we could select them all? So again, I could select it, right click, select, same type. And now it's going to select every column 1 that's in this file. Okay, so you can see there's a bunch of different ways you can select the different elements. The original question was, if I select everything, go to properties, how do I change just the top stitching? It's here. You drag this down, change it to what it is you want to modify, whether it's the satin, the walk, the bean, whatever it is. Choose it, and then it will give you access to those properties. Okay, what else do we have? Oh, on YouTube, how do I see the different types of ways a font will let me use for a letter like Y? That confuses me because there's only, for each character, there's only one digitized way of using it. So I don't quite understand your question, but I think what you're asking is like the special characters. So using this as a Y, what you can do is, if you drop that down, you can see there's all the different characters that you have. So you can see there's the Y with the umlauts and the accent that are digitized into it. There's also the lowercase versions of that. Now to get to those, what do? Well, you can turn on the character list and I can go, okay, well, where is the Y with the accent? It's here somewhere. Hang on. Oh, goodness. There it is. So I can double click on that, hit apply, and now it adds the Y with the accent. So if that's what you're asking, is how do you get to the character list? You have it here, but to see what characters are already digitized in the font, you look at these, what I call code sheets. It shows you all the characters that are digitized. Now keep in mind, not all fonts have all characters. Like this Block 2 font has none of the special characters digitized, so you're going to have to do that yourself. Or use a font that has them digitized like this one. Did that help, JKS on YouTube? Let me know. Hopefully that was what your question was. All right, let's see. What else do we have? We did that one. I've copied and pasted an object. Is there a way to remove stitches behind as the red is showing through a bit as the top is white? Yeah, so let's do that. And we did get you a link on the special characters and how to access those. All right, so I've got something. We're going to pretend I copied and pasted another something. So I've got two things. You said the bottom is red, the top is white. All right, so I think that's what you said. Yeah, because the darker thread is going to show through. So different things you can do is you can, of course, use, additional underlay and things like that. But ideally, we'd go remove the overlap. So what do? You select the element. When they're fills, you select the element that you want to remove stitches from. So that's this red thing. Then I'm going to hold my control key down, select the other shape. So right here, I've got subtract elements. Before you click on that, right click and see what the overlap is. Generally, you don't really want line to line. If you do want line to line, you can set that to 0. Somewhere between 7 and 10 is usually good. So I'm going to set that to 10 and then click on subtract elements, and you'll see it got rid of all those stitches in that quadrant of the square. All right, so that removes it for you. Okay. So you can use that subtract elements. Just remember, whatever you're going to take stitches out of, you select that first, and then you choose the element that you're subtracting away from it second. All right. So we do have a question that came in on YouTube that says, is there any way we can print out a sample of all fonts? Okay, so if I go into my properties, so I did that by double clicking, and it brings up my object properties. So here you can see there's a print selected. That will print just the code sheet for this font. But if you print all, that will print all the fonts. Okay. Typically, what I've done is I've printed that, and then rather than printing it to physical paper, I've saved it to PDF. That way I can reference that PDF or send links to the PDF for my clients to be able to look at. So print all, that's where it's at. Okay. So let's see. Kathy, we got that. All right, on Facebook, we have a question that came in. I was wondering if a design can be made into a patch by adding an outline so far from the perimeter. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's pretend I want to turn this thing into a patch. I'm going to make that a different color. All right, so let's just pretend these two weird squares is what I want to turn into a patch. I'm doing that because it's not a circle. All right, so what do? This is select everything that you want, come over to Object, Generate Priming, Basting or Primer Stitch, and I'm going to change that to Primer. You decide how far away you want it. So how much of a border do you want around it, or empty space before it does your satin stitch. So I'm going to put it at 40 points, whatever you want. All right, and now I have a fill. This is a primer stitch. All right, well, I'm going to delete one of those. I don't need two. I just did that to quickly generate the shape, so I don't have to go trace around it and try to be uniform. All right, so you can see that's super fast. So now what do you do to turn this into a patch? All right, well, now I'm going to change this from a fill to my running stitches, my zigzag, and then my satin stitch over top, or the marrow stitch if you want. Right, so I'm going to select that. I can do change element from one type to another, and I'm going to convert that over into a walk normal. I don't want to add it because I don't want that fill to begin with, so I'm just going to replace it. Okay, so now I've got a walking stitch in the shape of that. So now it's just a matter of copying and pasting. So I'm going to Control C, Control V. You noticed, or I can duplicate it. I'm going to give it another color. So I've got my placement, my tack down, copy, paste, give it another color. I want this to be a tackle stitch, so I need to change that type. I'm going to, again, change element from one type to another, say single line center, and I'm going to replace that walk, and then I'm going to change its type right here to tackle. And then I don't like it that narrow because I can't cut that close if my life depended on it. All right, so now I got a tackle switch stitch. Then I can copy and paste and turn that into a satin stitch, and let's make it even wider. All right, so that's how I would do it. So if I come up here and do object basting, the basting stitch is not one you would use because it doesn't contour all the way around. Notice when I use that, it drew straight lines along these because its purpose is different. It's intended for different things. So yes, you could use it if you don't mind having those kind of, so rather than this scalloped along it, it would have a stitch here. So yeah, you could use the basting, but I prefer the primer because it kind of sculpts closer to the design. Hey, good morning, Juliet. Yeah, all right, so Judy, hopefully that helps. Let's see. There was a question on Facebook. Will this be posted later for viewing? Absolutely. You can always find these on both YouTube and Facebook. All right, so they're, because we stream them live and they stay there. All right, what else do we have? Let me go back to my questions. We talked about that one. Okay, so there's, all right, this is talking about applique versus hold. I know I covered this a few weeks back, but let's look at it again. So fundamentally what they're asking is, hey, should I be using the applique when I'm setting up my designs on my machine, or should I be using the hold button? So when you set your colors, you can either use the applique or the hold. What's the difference between them? So when you choose applique, what's going to happen is it's going to sew, like in this case, it's going to sew color 1. And then when it gets to the word applique, the machine's going to stop. The pantograph, which is your hoop, is going to come out from under the needle case, and it's going to sit there. It's going to wait for you to lay down your fabric, do your trimming, whatever it is you want to do. It's going to basically, so what applique does is it pulls it out from under the needle case and it sits there. When you hit the green start button again, the first thing that's going to do is going to pull the hoop back under the machine into position, and then it's going to proceed on to, in this case, color 2 and color 3. All right. Now, when you use the hold button and rather than applique, hold, it just stops. So it's going to sew color 1. If you had hold rather than applique, the machine just stops sewing. All right. So it's going to sit there and wait for you to hit the green button again. All right. So when you hit start, then it will continue on to number 2. Or in this case, color 2 and color 3. So it's a personal preference. I use applique almost exclusively. The times I use hold is when I'm working on hats. So when I'm doing puff designs and things like that, I'll use hold. But short of that, I use applique for everything I do. So when I want the hoop to come out from under the machine, and then it just sits there waiting for me to go, get around to that machine. But like I said, when you're working on hats, I would always use hold. Okay. Flats, I use applique, but in the end, it gets you a similar function. All right, so we did, the other question that was buried in here, is there a way to load, to load a design to 2 machines at the same time? Yes, as long as they're on the same software. All right, so when you have multiple machines hooked up to one computer, you'll get a machine list on in my case, on the left-hand side. All right, so when you do that, you select multiple designs. Sorry, I saw the word design and said that. You select the machines you want it to go to. So you hold your control key down on your keyboard and you click, if you have 10 machines and you want to send it to 5 of them, hold the control, click on the 5 machines, and then you do file, load designs, load it, and it will send to all 5 machines. It'll load that design. Okay. If they're all threaded the same, you can even set colors at the same time, but you have to have them threaded the same for that to work. So what I mean by that is if you're sewing with white has to be on needle 3 on all of them, or whatever needle it is, on all the machines that you want it to. All right. But yes. Now, if it is, if they're on different computers, no, you load it on with one computer, then you go to the other computer and load it. All right, we have several questions typed in on the different platforms, so let me go jump on those. Let's see. Do I have a video on how to digitize for a baseball hat? Yes, I think I posted some links in at least one of the groups. I'll see if we can get you those links here. If you go to the Melco-service site, you can always search on the FAQ for hat digitizing, and that will take you to the FAQ that links you to the videos, some sample designs, tips and tricks, general digitizing guidelines, and things like that. But we'll see if we can get you those links as well. All right, I think that's Facebook. So YouTube, when tracing an image, if I make a mistake midway through, is there a way to delete just the last node and continue the trace? You're talking about when you're digitizing. Absolutely. All right, so I'm digitizing, pretend I'm tracing something. And I go, I did not mean to do that last stitch or that last left click. If you hit escape, you got to start over again. That's annoying, particularly if you've been tracing a big thing, right? So I just want to get rid of that last click. You hit the backspace. So backspace on your keyboard deletes the last thing you did. So I was just hitting backspace slowly. So backspace, deleted 1, backspace. All right, so backspace will get rid of that. After you complete a shape, there's another question that follows on. Let's see. After completing the shape, can you change a node from straight to curved? Yes. So I've got this shape here. Let's say that point, I don't like it being a straight point. I want it to be a curve. All right, I'll show you 2 ways to do it. You can double click on it and you can change it to curve. Okay, that works. That changed it to a curve. Another way would be to hold the shift key down on your keyboard. So shift and click changes it. So if I add, let's say I add a bunch of triangles here. All right, so I want that. Oh, I just did something here. Notice this, I have 2 triangles, but this line is kind of curvy and I don't want that to be curved. Let's pretend I want that to be a straight line. What do? Hold the control key down and right click on that line and it will make it a straight line for you. All right, so now if I want to change that point right there to a curve, I can hold my control key, shift and click. Control and shift. So shift, click makes that a curved, shift, click. So shift and click toggles between them. All right. Do you use backing on dog collars? I don't, but you can. If you're going to use backing on dog collars, I would use a tearaway. It really depends on how thick the collar is and how stable you're able to hoop it. So you can never go wrong with using a backing. That's my opinion. Backing always makes things better. So you can always add them, but yeah. All right. We have another question on YouTube. It says, I have a friend who wants to know what is the best needle for small lettering? Okay, so you're always, really, what is small? So that's a question I should ask. How small are you talking? Let's just pretend we're talking really tiny stuff. All right, so really tiny stuff, you're always going to have best luck using a thinner thread. So that's like a 60 weight thread, or depending on how tiny you're trying to go, they do make 70 weights. But typically speaking, a 60 weight thread. All right, and going from your typical 75 down to a 65/9 needle. All right, so I would suggest doing a 65/9 and a 60 weight thread. Usually get beautiful results that way. All right, let's see. Did I get all the questions that were typed in so far? Yep, there's those and there's those. All right. So popping back over to my other questions. Let's see what we have. Okay, so this is the group I posted the links in, but we'll try to get you some links as well. How to digitize for caps. So cap embroidery, it's really a matter of just doing the work, right? You want to always you'll read in those documents and see in those videos that you want to sew away from anchored points, meaning you sew away from things that can't move. That's why when you hear people talk about cap digitizing, they'll say center out, bottom to top. Why is that? Just think about it. You got the brim of the hat, which is usually cardboard or plastic or something really doesn't want to move, right? So if I'm sewing from top to bottom, you're going to be pushing that fabric towards the bottom, creating, bumps in the fabric. That's not cool. So what you want to do is go from bottom up, because if the fabric moves, it goes out. Same with center out. Why do we do center out? Because typically when you have that center seam, there's buckram, there's sometimes plastic. It's usually really stiff. It's not moving. Consider it fixed. So if it's not going to move, I don't want to sew towards it, because what's going to happen if the fabric is starting to move a little bit? Well, crap, that can't move. So now I'm going to get a bubble in my fabric. You'll get gaps and other things. So that's why it's center out. So it's really about just doing the work of thinking about your design, working on it to be center out, bottom to top. Finish as you go. Those are other good techniques. You really don't want to sew a massive design and then go back and do a bunch of outline work. Not a good idea. What you'd really want to do is, as you finish things, as you do an area, do your outlining work, things like that. Converting your favorite designs into cap designs. It's really just about thinking through it, reorganizing, repathing as necessary to make it appropriate for a hat, so that it's going bottom to top and center out. Can you embroider through a cap bill? You can, yes. But practically speaking, it's generally not the best idea. Most of the cap embroidery is done either two ways. It's done pre-construction, meaning they embroider the fabric, then they sew the cap together. All right. Or it's done as a patch and either sewn on with a, like a post bed machine or a walking foot, something like that. Or they glue it on with adhesives. There's some heat press adhesives, Madeira cells that work really well. Or I've seen people use the 6000 adhesive, things like that. So that's the more typical way to do it, because think about it. If you embroider through the bill, you're going to have the back is going to be the back of your embroidery. It's not usually the best look, particularly because everyone sees it, you know, when you're looking at the hat. So it's generally better to either do it pre-construction or to sew it as a patch and then either glue, heat press, or sew the patch on. If you're going to sew through it, make sure it's not, make sure you're upping your active feed, you're slowing it down, you're picking up your presser foot. You know, the standard things for sewing through aggressive, thick materials. I know we have a video that talks about that, some on doing karate belts, you know, similar techniques for if you're going to try to go through a cat bill, but just keep in mind it's generally better speaking to do those using patches or pre-construction. Okay, rolling through questions, see if I got everything. Okay, so it looks like I got everything on both Facebook and YouTube, and those were all the questions I had ahead of time. So you guys got anything else you want to talk about? Please let me know. I'll kind of scroll around for a second or two just to give you guys some time to type things in if you want. Next week, I'm going to aim for Thursday, and we will be back again to, you know, see what questions you have, try to help you out. I've been looking for other cameras so I can put them out in the other room. I don't know how to do that because my computer that I do these on is in one room and my machines are in the other. So I've been debating how to set up so I can actually show you guys stuff on the machines if you want. But for now, looks like I don't see any other questions. So I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Stay warm up north. Oh, you'd love to hear how I got started in embroidery. Ooh, I can ramble on that for a second. Gosh, my son is 15, my oldest. He's 15, and when before he was born, I wanted to do embroidery on his onesies. I just wanted to, you know, wanted to do goofy little things so that when he's crawling around, I'd have something to giggle at. I mean, honestly, that's what it was. But so I went by Joann's, and you know, they had a nice single needle machine. I bought it, and then I got to embroidering little things, and that was fun. So they had this deal where, hey, if you trade it in within a year, oh, we'll give you can put that purchase price to the next one. Yeah, so I did this stupid trade-in thing every few months to get the next one up because it was only a little bit more money at that point. So I did single needle embroidery for a while. It's fun. It's slow, one thread at a time, kind of obnoxious, really. Had some teenagers that were friends of mine, and they wanted to make some money, so came up with some patterns and showed them how to basically worked out some different projects with them, came up with some patterns. They went off and would sell it, come back to my house and embroider. And they would do the sales work. I helped them look through the costs of what much it would cost. I fronted all the materials. They gave me the money. They kept the extra of whatever they sold it for. So that was fun. And from that, creating one pattern for them, I was like, oh, well, I can create my own designs. So I started building my own little business, at which point it kind of grew from there, right? So I started one pattern, I'd create something else. Ooh, this is fun. Let me do something else. Ended up buying another brand embroidery machine and a commercial machine. And nearly, I would say, I regretted it almost immediately. It was a different brand, and I just missed all the features I saw because I did a demo with one of the Melco folks, and I liked all the features, but I wanted to spend I didn't have that much money at the time. So I bought another machine, used it until I could afford, and I immediately sold that one within a few months, actually, and got my first Melco machine. And then from there, I just built it one at a time, right? So I financed my first machine, my first Melco machine. And after that, I think within 3 months, I bought outright my second one. I have 13 now. So you can see it's what I've loved about it is being able to grow it slowly, right? So as my demand came, as I got busier, I could keep 2 machines busy. All right, well, let me look at buying a third one. Oh, well, now I can keep 3 busy. Well, let's make it 6. Things like that. So it's been able to kind of expand as I go. It's been fun. Like I said, I have 13 of them now. Just moved into a bigger space where I can start thinking about more machines at some point. Just getting comfortable running all 13. So I find every time I add more machines, it's a bit of a learning to optimize my flow through the space to keep them all running. So it's always fun. But yeah, I started off with a single needle machine and kind of snowballed from there. It's good stuff. All right. Question. Am I familiar with Hatch? I am aware of Hatch. I do not, I've never used it, so I'll be off. If we learn DesignShop, we'd be better off. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know Hatch, so I can't speak to that. DesignShop is it's a complete digitizing software. So if you can imagine it and think through it, you can typically digitize it within DesignShop. So you don't have to, again, when I got started, I wanted to be able to do anything I wanted. I didn't want to be limited by features, right? So I didn't want to have to go, I can't. I didn't want that game. So that's why I personally went straight to the pro level, because I figured even if I didn't know how to do it, as I started learning and go, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could do ABC, whatever it is, then I'd be able to go to the software and figure it out and look for help, tutorials, whatever it was, and learn it. So I love DesignShop. I find it easy to use, but like I said, I can't speak to Hatch. I don't use it. I've never used it. I hear lots of good things. I just don't use it. I use DesignShop. All right. Let's see. Any other questions now that I've rambled on? So, sounds like we have do you have any videos on how to digitize from a picture type idea? Like, are you talking about faces and things like that? Or are you talking about just grab any graphic and digitize it? Strap-on spell. Okay, that's some interesting spam. Do you have any videos on how to digitize a picture? Let me know what you're thinking. There's so much. Oh, yeah. The effects. Yeah. What time is it? Okay, I still have time. Okay, grab a graphic. Okay, so yeah, we do have videos on so what I would suggest on that. So the question on digitizing, I said, photos or grab a graphic. So let's do this. If you go to Melco helps if I can spell, melcouniversity.com, and then click on media and go to the playlists, digitizing. This right here, start at the top for the digitizing. Start there and watch through it. It will show you a graphic that you can actually pull up and follow along and kind of work through it. Okay, so that's a really good video to start with. All right, there's so much interesting stuff in the effects section. Can you give us a tutorial? All right, so effects. I love some of the stuff you can do in there. All right, so let's look at them. All right, so if I go to properties, effects, random edge is really cool. If I use this on, well, actually I'll show you where I use it a lot. So if I draw a single line, all right, and I'm going to make it 40 and do random edge. I usually do one side, apply. So if I want to make something look like grass quick, I usually do this. So if I'm doing like landscapes and things like that, rather than me drawing a bunch of lines, I'll do random. You can also use it when you're doing furs and things like that. Anything that you want to kind of make the edge a little more random, right? You can do it one way or the other. So you can see the percentage is, how much randomness is it adding to it. So if that's too much, I can lower it. If that's not enough, I can increase it. Okay, so that's going to be your random edge. You can also do one side or another. I've done that for like a shooting star to get kind of a random edge off the back end of it. So you can do that. So that's going to be your random. Now you also have these distortion effects, which again are fun. All right, so radial out. I've used these when doing like basketballs and things like that to make it look like you're kind of going over a ball, right? So to give it more of a curved look, you can do like a radial out, like you see here. You can do all kinds of different effects to them. And let's see, radial in. There you go. So you can see it gets radial out is probably the one of these I use the most because it curves everything nicely. So I use those through decoratives to add some kind of dimension to the decorative, to fills when I want to make them look rounded. So those sort of things on the distortion effects. Now, what about our density? So custom density can be done a few ways. If you're just doing it as a fill that you want to be great, kind of go from thick to thin up here, I can see the underlay. That's not cute. So I'm going to turn that off at the moment. All right. So this is the most expensive so there's a question typed in, this is the most expensive version of DesignShop being shown right now. I have lettering only. I won't have this. Yeah, I'm using DesignShop Professional. That's what I can change it over to lettering and show you some of the features there. But I don't believe any of the effects tab is part of the lettering only. I'm really bad with, I always have to change my level over because I don't remember what belongs to what feature, because when I digitize personally, it's all in Professional. So I have a hard time keeping track of what feature belongs to which version. Let's see. Oh, they got you a link showing you which features go to what. So yeah. Okay, so density. When I'm doing the custom density, I tend to turn on this auto and play with it, because you can move these around, you can add points. So I tend to turn on auto and make large motions so I can see what's happening as I make changes. So I can get whatever look if I'm trying to make a sunset or something like that. You can also turn on a blend, which again is fun. So let me get a different color. I'm going to make it a drastic different color so you can see it. Okay. So again, you can create those blend effects. And again, you can reverse it. So that flips it. They've got ones already programmed in here that you can play with. I tend to just go straight to picking the one that's closest to what I want and then adding points and dragging it around. You can add curves. You can, right click for curves, left click for straight points, things like that. All right. Anyway. Okay. So Gail, does that show you? That's best thing I can suggest with these effects is to play with them. Don't be scared of the software. It's really easy. You're not gonna break anything. Try it. You like it, great. You don't, try something else. All right. Here, I'll show you real quick. If I change this to decorative, and then I go to properties, effects, radial out. See that? Isn't that fun? And you can move this around and things like that. So you can get really cool effects. Okay, let's see. Can you give gradients in letters? I don't remember. I usually do them manually, so I don't, let's see. Effects, custom blend, yeah, blend. Not that I was, oops, oh good grief. Yeah, so then I'm gonna have to go change all the colors. But you can see it's got that blend over top, so yeah, you can. Yeah, I don't do it that way. When I do lettering like that, I'll either get one that's specifically digitized to be gradients, or I'll do it manually myself, because then I can control where the gradients go. All right. Nate did some really good videos on blends in general, so they were done a while back. There's also a blog article on Melka's blog. I assume it's still up. I haven't looked in a while, but there was a really nice article that talked about, you know, the importance of choosing colors when dealing with blends and things like that. So we'll see if we can get you some of those links. Okay. Oh, new comment. Let's see. Oh, let's see. So if I have 2-color lettering, how do I make the colors I want beginning so I don't have to change all the colors? Okay. So 2-color lettering. Let's do that. I'm going to change this to 2-color block. All right, so that's cute. I've got lettering 2 colors. I don't want to have to go select each color individually, right? So how can you change this? Well, over here you'll see this is all the unique thread colors used in a design. All right, so I can right click on this, say edit color, go change it to this one, and then let's say I want to change the border, right click on that, edit, change it to silver. Cool. So it changes it all at once. So same for auto borders. Let's do that. So block 2, properties, auto borders, enable, apply, okay. So yeah, exact same thing. Right click, edit, go change it to neon. So yeah, it works the same whether you're doing it for auto borders or with whether it's been digitized as a 2-color font. Anytime you have colors multiple, like here, this purple is used multiple places, right? Here, let me add it a few more places. So let's say I want to change that purple. I don't want to have to hold my control key and go find all the locations that it's used. I can just come over here, right click on the purple, go to edit, and say I want it to be that purple, not the dark purple. Okay, and every location that's used, it will change it for you. Okay. Okay. I think that is all the questions that were typed in. I don't have anything. Oh, look, do we have a new one? Let me scroll down. Could I have something, let's see. Could I have something checked that isn't allowing that? I can't imagine what. If you could send over a design or screenshot or something over to applications, we can take a look at it for you. applications@melco.com. Can you separate the auto border? Can you change it to have the auto border separate? Yes. So, but you have to convert to wireframe to do that. So you'd say operations, convert to wireframe. And now all these are separate elements and not part of it. So I can move those around. But now the text is not editable as text. So yes, you can separate it, but it comes at a price, if you will. YouTube. We got you the link to the gradients and blending. All right. Any other questions? I'm excited. I like it when we're chatty. Gives me more to do. Okay. Well, you guys have a fantastic weekend. I think my agenda is paintball with the kids. And hanging around here. Thread inventory. Anyway. You guys have a fantastic weekend. We will be back. I'm aiming for next Thursday, but if we miss Thursday, it'll be Friday for sure, but aiming for Thursday. So you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys next week with whatever questions you might have. Till then, have fun sewing. All right. Have a good weekend. Bye, y'all.